My name is Michael Reynolds. I'm 38 years old, and I live in Naperville, Illinois, about 30 minutes outside of Chicago. I work as a senior IT analyst for a logistics company downtown. I'm also a single dad to my one-year-old daughter, Ava. Ava has been playing the cello since she was 6, and until 3 months ago, she owned something incredibly rare, a 19th century Italian cello that once belonged to my late grandfather. Now it's gone, because my own parents stole it and sold it for $87,000. I wish I was exaggerating. I wish this was some kind of misunderstanding, but it wasn't. And what hurts the most isn't even the money. It's what they said about her. My grandfather, Thomas Reynolds, immigrated to the United States from Italy in 1952. He settled in Chicago and worked as a violin maker's apprentice before eventually opening a small instrument restoration shop in Lincoln Park. He was a quiet man, soft-spoken, patient. When I was a kid, his workshop smelled like varnish and old wood. He used to let me sit on a tall stool while he worked, explaining how instruments breathe. He had one cello he never sold. A 1884 Carlo Bianchi. He kept it in a humidity-controlled case in his bedroom closet. He'd take it out every Christmas and play for the family. My mom used to roll her eyes and call it Dad's museum piece. When he passed away 5 years ago, he left that cello to Ava. Not to me. To Ava. She was 6 at the time. In his will, he wrote, "For Ava, who listens when others only hear noise." My parents weren't happy. Ava didn't start playing seriously until she turned 8. But once she did, it was like something clicked inside her. She practiced every single day without me having to ask. Her instructor, Mrs. Kaplan, told me last year, "She has real talent, Michael. This isn't just a hobby for her." By age 10, Ava was performing in regional youth symphonies. Judges consistently commented on the richness of her tone. And that cello? It wasn't just sentimental. It was valuable. I had it appraised 2 years ago for insurance purposes. The certified appraisal came back at $82,000 at the time. With the vintage instrument market rising, it was likely worth more now. So yes, it was insured. That part becomes important later. My parents have always had complicated feelings about money. They live comfortably in a gated community in Sarasota, Florida. My dad retired early from commercial real estate. My mom spends most of her time at charity luncheons and HOA meetings. But here's the thing about them. They respect status, not passion. To them, music is cute, unless it's profitable. And they've never really taken Ava's talent seriously. Last summer, they came to visit for 2 weeks. Ava had a recital during that time. She performed Saint Saëns' The Swan. The audience gave her a standing ovation. Afterward, my mom leaned over and whispered to me, "She's good, but let's not turn her into one of those struggling artist types." I laughed it off. I shouldn't have. In October, I had to travel to Seattle for a 5-day work conference. Normally, Ava would stay with a close friend of mine and his wife, but they had just had a newborn. My parents offered to fly in and stay at my house to watch her. I hesitated. But they're her grandparents. And they insisted. "Michael," my dad said over the phone, "we're not monsters. We can handle our granddaughter for a few days." I agreed. Biggest mistake I've made as a father. Before I left, I reminded Ava about the cello. "Only take it out when you practice," I said. "Keep it in the humidity case, and don't let anyone move it." She rolled her eyes playfully. "Dad, I know." The night before my flight, I noticed my mom standing in the hallway outside Ava's room, watching her practice. She had this look. Not admiration. Assessment. Like she was calculating something. I should have paid attention. On the 3rd day of my trip, Ava called me. She sounded quiet. Not upset. Just small. "Dad? Hey, Bug, everything okay?" Grandma asked how much my cello costs. I paused. "What did you tell her?" I said it's not about money. That's my girl. I felt something twist in my stomach. What did Grandma say? She said everything is about money eventually. I didn't sleep well that night. When I got home Sunday evening, the house felt off. Too quiet. Ava ran to hug me. She seemed fine. Normal. My parents were in the kitchen. "Good trip?" my dad asked casually. "Yeah," I said. "Where's the cello?" Silence. It wasn't in the living room corner where it always sat. It's safe, my mom said quickly. Safe where? Another pause. And that's when I knew. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Safe where? I repeated. My mom gave my dad a quick look, the kind of look married couples exchange when they're silently deciding who's going to speak first. My dad cleared his throat. We had it evaluated. I felt something cold move through my chest. Evaluated? I asked slowly. By who? A professional, my mom said quickly. A very reputable collector. My heart started pounding. Why? They both hesitated. And then my mom said something that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. Because it's irresponsible to let an 11-year-old handle something worth that much money. I stared at her. That instrument belongs to Ava. She's a child, Michael. She's the owner. My dad stepped in. Technically, you're her guardian. And as her guardians while you were away, we made a financial decision. My stomach dropped. What decision? Silence. Then, my mom said it. We sold it. For a moment, I honestly thought I misheard her. You did what? We sold it, she repeated, like she was telling me they'd returned a sweater to Macy's. I felt my pulse in my ears. How much? $87,000. The number hung in the air like poison. 87,000美元. Gone. I turned toward Ava. She was standing at the edge of the hallway, frozen. Did you know? I asked gently. She shook her head. Grandma told her the cello was being cleaned. Cleaned. That's what they called it. My daughter didn't even know it was gone for good. I looked back at my parents. Where is the money? My dad folded his arms. We invested it. In what? A diversified portfolio. I let out a short, humorless laugh. You stole from your granddaughter and invested her inheritance? My mom's tone hardened. Don't use that word. We protected her from a liability. A liability? I repeated. It's wood, Michael, she snapped. Old wood. It could crack. It could get damaged. It's not practical. It's her instrument. It's an asset. No. It wasn't about protection. It was about control. Here's something you need to understand about my parents. They believe they know better. Always. When I wanted to study computer science instead of finance, they called it short-sighted. When I bought my modest house instead of something flashier downtown, they called it uninspired. When my ex-wife left, my mom said, well, you never aimed high. So when Ava started showing real musical talent, they didn't see passion. They saw risk. And opportunity. When did you sell it? I asked quietly. Thursday, my dad replied. The same day, Ava had orchestra rehearsal. They had done it while she was at school. They had let a stranger into my house, into my daughter's room, to take the one thing her great-grandfather left specifically to her. My hands were shaking now. You had no legal right. My dad gave me a thin smile. Actually, we did. You gave us power of attorney for emergency decisions while you were away. I felt the blood drain from my face. He was right. I'd signed a temporary authorization form in case Ava needed medical care. They'd used it to justify selling her inheritance. I suddenly felt sick. Ava spoke up softly. Grandma? My mom turned. Yes, sweetheart? Did you at least tell the man it was mine? My mom hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. No, she said finally. We handled the transaction as owners. Ava's shoulders dropped. She didn't cry. That was the worst part. She just nodded slowly. Okay. Then she walked into her room and closed the door. I followed her. She was sitting on her bed, staring at the empty corner where the cello case used to stand. I'm sorry, I said. She looked up at me. Did I do something wrong? That question broke me. No, I said immediately. You did nothing wrong. She swallowed. Grandma said serious musicians don't get attached to instruments, that real professionals just use whatever they're given. I closed my eyes. She said that? Ava nodded. She said if I'm really talented, I shouldn't need that one. I felt anger rise like heat under my skin. That cello wasn't just an instrument. It was her connection to her great-grandfather. It was history. It was identity. And my parents had reduced it to a line item. That night, after Ava went to bed, I confronted them. "You're reversing this." My dad shook his head. "The buyer already transferred funds. It's final." "Then you buy it back." "Impossible." "Then you give her the money." My mom scoffed. "And let an 11-year-old control $87,000? It's not about control. It's about responsibility," she shot back. "No," I said quietly. "It's about you not respecting her." Silence. And then my dad said something I'll never forget. "She's not a prodigy, Michael. She's a phase. A phase. Like braces. Like a middle school crush." That's when something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about the cello anymore. This was about them thinking they could decide who my daughter was allowed to become. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just said one thing. "You need to leave." My mom blinked. "Excuse me? You need to pack your bags and leave my house. We're your parents. And she's my daughter." There was a long pause. Then my dad stood up slowly. "You're making a mistake." "No," I replied. "You already did." They left the next morning. But before they drove away, my dad said something through the car window. "You'll thank us one day." No, I wouldn't. Because what they didn't know yet was that the cello was insured for more than they thought, and the insurance company was about to ask some very uncomfortable questions. The morning after my parents left, I called our insurance provider. I'd added a separate rider policy on the cello 2 years ago after the appraisal. At the time, the agent had told me, "With instruments like that, you never take chances." I never imagined I'd need it because of my own parents. The claims representative, a woman named Denise, listened quietly as I explained what happened. "Just to clarify," she said carefully, "the instrument was removed from your home without your permission." "Yes." "And sold?" "Yes." "Do you have documentation of the sale?" "No, my parents handled it." There was a pause. "Mr. Reynolds, this may constitute unauthorized transfer of insured property." That was the first time someone used language that matched what I was feeling. Unauthorized transfer. Not financial decision. Not asset management. Theft. Denise explained that because the cello was insured under my homeowner's policy as scheduled property, any sale without the policyholder's authorization could trigger a claim investigation. Even if family was involved, especially if family was involved, she asked for the original appraisal, a copy of my grandfather's will, proof of ownership transfer to Ava, the temporary power of attorney document, any communication from my parents about the sale. I had most of it. What I didn't have, the buyer's information. That afternoon, I texted my dad. "Me, I need the buyer's name and contact information." "Dad, why?" "Me, because the insurance company is investigating." "Dad, that's unnecessary." "Me, send it." No response. 30 minutes later, my mom called. "Michael, what are you doing?" "Protecting my daughter." "You're turning this into something ugly." "You already did." She lowered her voice. "If you file a claim, this becomes legal." "It already is." Silence. Then she said something colder than I expected. "You'll ruin this family over an object?" I took a breath. "No, you did that when you took it." 2 days later, I got an email from Denise. Subject line: "Claim under review. Possible fraud component." Frou. That word carries weight. Apparently, if someone sells insured property without disclosing active coverage, and especially if they don't have clear ownership rights, the transaction can become legally complicated. Very complicated. The insurance company requested a formal statement from my parents. They also wanted to speak directly with the buyer, which meant one thing: this wasn't going away quietly. That evening, Ava was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. She hadn't touched her backup student cello all week. It sat unopened in its case. "Bug," I said gently. "Mrs. Kaplan called. She asked if you're coming to rehearsal." Ava kept her eyes on her math worksheet. "I don't know." "Why?" She shrugged. "What's the point?" That sentence scared me more than anything my parents had done. "What do you mean?" "She was right," Ava said quietly. "Who?" "Grandma." I felt my chest tighten. She said if I was really good, I wouldn't need that cello. I knelt down beside her chair. "Listen to me," I said firmly. Talent isn't about proving something to someone who doesn't believe in you. She blinked back tears. It felt like he was still there when I played it. She meant my grandfather. And that's when I realized this wasn't about replacing the instrument. It was about restoring what they took emotionally. 3 days later, my dad finally sent the buyer's information. A private collector in Boston. Name, Richard Halpern. I forwarded it to the insurance company immediately. Within 24 hours, they contacted him. And that's when things started unraveling. Apparently, when my parents sold the cello, they presented it as inherited property under their ownership. They did not disclose that. It was specifically bequeathed to Ava. It was insured. It was under a scheduled rider policy. The policyholder, me, had not authorized the sale. From the buyer's perspective, that's a problem. A big one. Because if the sale is disputed, he could be forced to return the instrument. And collectors hate legal disputes. That night, my dad called. His tone had changed. What did you tell the insurance company? The truth. You're putting us in a terrible position. I didn't sell an 11-year-old's inheritance. This could void the sale. That's the point. He exhaled sharply. You don't understand the financial implications. No, I said calmly. You don't understand the emotional ones. 2 days later, I received a formal letter. The insurance company had determined that the sale was conducted without proper authority and under misrepresentation of ownership. They were prepared to freeze payout processing, initiate recovery procedures, involve legal counsel if necessary, and if the buyer cooperated, the cello could be returned. Returned. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to hope. But then my mom showed up at my door unannounced. Alone. She looked different. Less polished. Less certain. We need to talk. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. What? You're humiliating us. You humiliated her. She flinched. We thought we were helping. No, you thought you knew better. She looked at me. Really looked at me. For years, she said quietly, your father and I built everything we have by making hard decisions. We assumed you'd want security for her. She had security, I replied. She had legacy. My mom's voice cracked slightly. We didn't think she'd care that much. And that's when I realized something. They never actually saw her. They saw potential value. But they never saw her heart. Then she said something unexpected. The buyer is reconsidering. I felt my pulse quicken. What does that mean? It means if we return the money, he might return the instrument. Then return it. She hesitated. Your father already moved a portion of it into an investment account. Of course he did. How much? $30,000. So not only had they sold it, they'd started spending it. I looked at her and said something I never imagined I'd say to my own mother. If that cello doesn't come back, this isn't just about insurance. It becomes criminal. Her face went pale. For the first time since this started, she understood the gravity. Inside, Ava was practicing. Not on the antique cello. On the student one. The sound was thinner, but she was playing anyway. And that's when I made a decision. Whether that cello came back or not, my parents were going to learn something. About consequences. 3 days later, I got the call. Not from my parents. From the insurance company's legal department. Mr. Reynolds, the attorney said, the buyer has agreed to cooperate. I sat down slowly. Cooperate how? He was not aware of the ownership dispute. Given the documentation we provided, including your grandfather's will, and the minor beneficiary clause, he's willing to reverse the transaction, under one condition. Of course there was a condition. He wants the full $87,000 returned immediately. I closed my eyes. And if it's not? Then he retains the instrument, and the matter may escalate legally. Which meant lawsuits, court, public record. This was no longer a family disagreement. This was about to become permanent. That evening, my dad called. His voice sounded tired. We're liquidating the account. How long? A few days. You have 48 hours, I said calmly. That's what the buyer gave the insurance company. There was silence. Then he asked, you'd really press charges? If that cello doesn't come back to my daughter, yes. It wasn't a threat. It was a fact. For the first time in my life, my father didn't argue. He just hung up. Those next 2 days felt endless. Ava kept practicing. She didn't ask about the cello anymore. That hurt the most. Kids adapt too quickly when they feel something is gone for good. On the second night, she came into my room. Dad? Yeah? If it doesn't come back, it's okay. I sat up. No, it's not. She gave a small shrug. Great. Grandpa wouldn't want everyone fighting. I swallowed hard. Great. Grandpa also wouldn't want someone taking what he gave you. She thought about that, then nodded slowly. 46 hours after my conversation with my dad, Denise, from insurance called again. The funds have been transferred back to the buyer. My heart pounded. And? He has agreed to return the instrument. It will be shipped tomorrow morning under insured transport. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until that moment. It was coming home. But that wasn't the end. 2 days later, I received another letter. This one wasn't about recovery. It was about policy violation. Because, technically, the sale attempt had triggered a fraud review. And although I wasn't responsible, the insurance company documented everything. Which meant, if my parents ever tried anything similar again, it would follow them. Financially, legally, permanently. Consequences don't always scream. Sometimes they just stay on record forever. The cello arrived on a Friday afternoon. White glove delivery. Temperature-controlled case. Ava stood beside me as I signed for it. Her hands were shaking when she opened the latches. And when she lifted it out, she didn't say anything. She just pressed her cheek gently against the wood, like she was hugging a person. Then she whispered, "Hi." That one word made every fight worth it. That night, she played. Not for an audience. Not for competition. Just for us. She played the same piece she performed last summer, The Swan. But this time, it sounded different. Stronger. Not just technically. Emotionally. Like she understood something deeper now. Like loss had shaped the sound. My parents didn't come to see it. We haven't spoken much since. My mom sent one short message. "We hope you're satisfied." I didn't respond. Because satisfaction wasn't the point. Respect was. A week later, something unexpected happened. Mrs. Kaplan called me. "There's a youth concerto competition in March," she said. "Ava's been recommended." Recommended? Yes, quietly. Judges noticed her resilience. Resilience. That word stayed with me. Because that's what this whole thing was about. Not wood. Not $87,000. Not pride. Resilient. Here's something I've learned. Some people see value only in dollars. Others see value in legacy. My parents thought they were protecting an asset. But they never understood. That cello wasn't worth $87,000 because of its age. It was priceless because of who it belonged to. 2 months later, Ava performed in that competition. She didn't win first place. She won second. And when they announced her name, she didn't look at the judges. She looked at me and smiled. Not because of the trophy, but because she still had her instrument, her history, her connection. As for my parents, they haven't visited since. There are lines you cross in life that can't be uncrossed. Selling your granddaughter's inheritance without telling her father? That's one of them. Do I hate them? No. But I see them clearly now. And clarity changes relationships. The cello sits in the same corner of our living room. Humidity controlled. Insured. Protected. But more importantly, respected. And every time Ava plays, I remember something my grandfather once told me in his workshop. Instruments don't just carry sound, Michael. They carry stories. He was right. And this one? We'll never forget.